Welcome everyone to our webinar today. I'm Jerry Pate. I am the chairman of TMAC, the Modern Airport Conference. We produce our conferences in Latam and intra-country in Brazil every year. In 2025, we'll be having our conference in Brasilia in March and in Panama City in September. And throughout the year, we produce these webinars, and they're produced for the purpose of engaging in the real issues that face our airport industry. And as we endeavor to kind of enlighten ourselves on the challenges that we're facing in the industry, and we seek to constantly look at potential solutions and efforts to modernize, to make our airports better. And in doing this, we invite routinely commercial providers to talk about the latest technologies and their latest products and services, in order to do that. Today's topic is on Apron management. And I've invited a number of people to participate today. First, we have Sergio Martins from Saab. Sergio is the Director of Air Traffic Management and Surveillance Radars for Latin America. Then we have Leandro Mequaniti. Sorry, Leo. I just know you as Leo. He's the Director of Sales for Iricity. We have Mauro De Luca, the Executive Director for WeSafer. And we have Justin Kester. He's the VP of Global Sales for Synaptic Aviation. They're all going to be participating in this panel. Before we get going, and I turn it over to the panel, I've asked Sergio to kind of give us, Sergio, you've been around for many years, and you've also worked with a number of the commercial providers, solutions providers, the experts in the field that we've invited to participate today. And I kind of wanted Sergio to talk a little bit about kind of the macro issues and the convergence of these interests between airports, airlines, and air navigation service providers, and the need for cooperation to increase in an effort to obviously increase efficiency and capacity. But then, we have that conflict between demand and capacity balancing. That's an ongoing conflict. And then potentially, if you could segue into kind of talking about, since we have some heavyweights here specifically in turn management, how how effective turn management should be incorporated in overall management of the apron. So Sergio, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, morning everyone. I'm Sergio Martins. I'm based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I started my career in 1993. I was already an engineer, but the only thing that I was sure in my life is that I didn't want to be an engineer. So I passed an examination for air traffic control, and I became an air traffic controller in Brazil at Rio de Janeiro Approach Control and Control Tower. And from there, I was contaminated by the air transport virus. Then I became a flight dispatcher. I worked at Varig as a flight operations engineer. Then I moved into CETA. I was at CETA for 16 years, flight operations and air ground communications, data link. Then I had my own company. I worked 3 years at CETA. I work at Indra, and then I have been with Saab for 10 years. And the nice thing about it is that I was able to go 360 degrees around air transport activity. So I can understand what air transport is from an air traffic controller perspective, an operations, airport operator, airline perspective, and how those things connect. And it's very rare that we see people with the ability to manage those different perspectives. So there are two things which I have dedicated most of my time currently. One is that the air transport mode worldwide is in check. Why? Because we have at some point in time decided that we may increase demand, airlines buying more aircraft, having more flights, more frequencies as the most attractive destinations and times, using an infrastructure which is definite, which is predefined. The airspace and the airport surface, they're not infinite, they're finite infrastructures. So when we try to increase demand, there is no way we can be 100% on-time performance. Like a bus station, you go into a large holiday or a large weekend, it's going to be crowded. Nothing is going to be on time. But because we told passengers that if they close door on time, they will be at the destination on time, this is not true, and this is complicating the situation for the whole air transport activity, because flights are becoming expensive because of fuel waste, environmental damage, and a lot of frustration. So one thing is that at any point in time, everyone needs to stop and say, there is no way, this is a third-degree equation, demand, capacity, and on-time performance. I cannot play with the three things independently. If I want to be flying as many flights as I can at the best time, at the best destination, flights will need to be delayed. That's what ICAO tried to say in 2012 with the ground delay program that has been implemented in Europe and US and Latin America. Never learned that, never liked the idea of delaying a flight because of capacity. This is one thing, which is global. The other thing, which is local for Latin America, is that we still operate the aprons with nobody responsible for efficient capacity, predictability within the apron. So we allow the air traffic controllers to be talking to the pilots, and there is no service being provided. The only thing that the air traffic controller does is talk to the pilot and transmit information which is provided by the airport operator. So when the air traffic controller say you're clear for pushback, the only thing he's saying is that nothing prevents you from an ATC perspective to start your operation. But your movement is not under my responsibility. So yesterday we had 2 aircraft crashing in Congonhas Airport. There is nothing to do with the air traffic controller. We are delegating that responsibility for someone who is there to make sure that the operation within taxiway and runway, the movement area or the maneuvering area, is safe and in blind mode. So we have never adopted as a default surveillance solutions for managing the airport. So the airlines, the airport, the ground handlers, everyone is operating the airport in blind mode. While we should be monitoring the aircraft and vehicle movements for at least 10 years. So today you're going to be talking to people who provide state-of-the-art solutions for managing and monitoring the operation within the gate. And in the most developed world, the way those technologies fit into the scenario was a fill in the gap. Okay, guys, someone is managing the surface of the airport using surveillance technology, traditional surveillance, ADS-B, multilateration. But those people cannot help you when the aircraft parks at the gate because the aircraft is stuck. So those guys come up with a brilliant solution is, okay, we can monitor the vehicles and we can monitor the operation by looking at the vehicles and providing you with an end-to-end monitoring experience. So you can monitor the movement within the surface all the way from landing to takeoff. They are facing an issue in Latin America, which is who is responsible for the efficiency within the apron? No one. So they have gold in their hands, but they have nobody to offer, because if they go to the airport is going to say, well, this is ATC area. No, it's not. And if they approach the airline, they say, well, I love that, but I do not own the gates. I'm operating in this gate and some other, and the other airlines as well. So who's going to pay for that? So the best thing that I can do for helping those guys to promote their brilliant solutions is to help people to understand it is important to manage the surface of the airport. It is not something that the air traffic controller will do. He will not. And this is not something that you can do blindly. I like to say that in Latin America, our airports are like proud blind people that are very proud that they could walk forever without seeing anything. Okay, that's great. You have done great. But today you can see things. And because you can see things, you can measure and you can monitor and you can optimize and you can do a lot of things that you can only do because you see, you record, and you store and you process that information. So that's basically my contribution to introduce those guys. They will present you with fantastic stuff that will perfectly fit into a scenario where someone, either the airport or the airline or someone is responsible for ensuring efficiency of the operation within the airport surface.
Now, Sergio, you recently published an article where you mentioned that you are encouraged finally after years of frustration, that part of which comes out in your discussion today. But you're encouraged by the increased cooperation that you're seeing and some of the deployment of these technologies and these this modernization at the gate, if you will. Now, I know you've worked with Synaptic, and I know you've worked with Mauro over at WeSafer. I'm not sure if you've worked with Leo yet, had the pleasure, but maybe you want to give, you wrote that article and you were very positive about, you were encouraged. You want to elaborate a minute on that before we hand it over to one of the guys?
Yeah, I mean, there is one thing that I forgot to mention is that at some point in time, Latin America has been promised to improve airport efficiency and capacity with CDM type of operation. Sorry, this is wrong. CDM is a mechanism for limiting demand and for restricting flexibility. So that assumes it's like a license plate driving restriction in a metropolis. It assumes that you have done all your homework for improving capacity. So CDM recognizes that you need to limit demand to make them match. So CDM will not increase your efficiency or your capacity. It will reduce your demand. Those things, like the systems that those guys will present to you, like surveillance, like monitoring vehicles, like taking ownership of the management, that's what increases efficiency, capacity, and predictability. CDM is not an airport discipline, it's an air traffic flow and capacity management discipline that the air navigation service providers should conduct the discussion, provided people understand that whenever you have CDM, DC, forget this is collaboration. We are talking about accepting sacrifices. That's what CDM is. So whenever you have CDM, you're going to have a CTOT saying that you cannot depart when you want it. You're going to have a TSAT saying you cannot push back as you wanted, and you're going to have -5, +5 tolerance window. It is always restriction. It is always interference in your flying intentions. So before going that way, go for improving your efficiency and capacity. And those systems that will be presented to you are an important part of that.
So, that's a great point, Sergio. I love reading your articles. I love hearing from you. Sergio always kind of like addresses things head on. I love his style. So let's talk about a case in point. Sergio, I know you've worked with Justin. Well, maybe not specifically Justin, but you've worked with Synaptic Aviation. And Justin, I'll hand it to you in talking specifically about increasing turn efficiency at the gate. What is Synaptic doing? Maybe give a use case example in Latin America, and specifically what events are covered, analyzed, recorded, reported on. What events are both the airport and the airlines looking at, what's covered in your technological service. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, good. Can everybody hear me? Just want to make sure everybody can hear me clearly. Thanks again for the invite, Jerry. And again, this is a very big topic for obviously my company and all the companies on this call. So I do have a couple of slides. I figured it might be easier to kind of give a visual representation of, let's see, give me 2 seconds. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, sure. Yes.
All right, so just a kind of high level overview about Synaptic. So we are a AI technology company that layers our technology over cameras, right? So either we can purchase the cameras and install them for you guys. A lot of airports are actually purchasing the cameras themselves and then layering our technology on top of it. But some of the key things that we really focus on is there's kind of two ways to look at AI as far as with Synaptic. There's the live monitoring, there's the historical data, right? So as far as live monitoring, this is the, the real-time improved arrival readiness, right? These are the alerts that we can send via text message, through Springshot, through Inform, through, email. But basically, we've all been on a flight before where we land at an airport, we're sitting outside a gate for like 10 minutes. You're like, why are we not pulling in? It's usually because there's a ground crew that's not been alerted to get over there and allow that plane to come in, right? So we can actually send proactive alerts to the airport, to the airline, to the ground handlers. Hey, you've got a flight coming in 5 minutes early. You have nobody over at G33. You need to get a crew over there, right? So again, that's kind of helping on the customer experience side too, but it's also helping on the arrival readiness. And then as far as the main thing about optimizing turnaround times, the key thing is, when a flight arrives, there's usually about 9 to 12 steps they have to kind of go through to kind of get through that turn press, right? Versus flight arrives, chalks go on, plug in APU, plug GPU, JetBridge gets attached. So what we actually do is timestamp and take a small video of each one of those events, right? So actually we go through each critical event from chalks on to APU to GPU. At the very top of our screen, we also have a thing that's basically what we call a predicted off block time, right? So as you get, say, 60% through that turn, through like 60% of those events that you have to do critically before you can make that turn, it'll actually tell you, hey, you're either 5 minutes ahead or you're going to be 10 minutes behind leaving this flight. So that is kind of like the real live monitoring side of it, right? And you can kind of help with gate assignments and other things that you need to do if you need to, reallocate a plane to a different gate. Now, as far as the historical data, what's great about it is now that you have all these data points and you can track all these different things at specific gates, now you can kind of use it to improve operations, right? So you can say, hey, why is it Tuesday at this gate between 2 and 4, there's always a 20-minute delay, right? So now you can almost pinpoint what are some of the critical issues that are causing issues with your turn management instead of having to go, through a CCTV footage and look through 20 hours of video to find one critical event. Our events are actually tagged and they're a 30-second video. So instead of having to go through all these, long hours of video, it'll basically pull it up and say, hey, this is exactly when the APU is connected. This is exactly when the GPU is. And it's a small snippet video, about 30 seconds. So it's a lot easier to kind of go back through historical data, find out, where your inefficiencies, what are causing the issues. And then as far as some of the things, as far as on safety and compliance, we've had a lot of clients use it where what they'll do is at the end of each week, bring in their ground ops, the airlines, the guys working on the ramp, and they'll actually sit down and watch a full turn and say, hey, let's point out all the critical errors, whether it's a safety guy in the envelope that doesn't have a vest on, or somebody didn't do a pre-arrival FOD walk. These are all proactive alerts that we can send to the airport's airlines, but also they can kind of use it as a tool after the fact to kind of use it as a learning management of a tool to kind of help, whether it's onboarding, but ongoing education for their ramp operations and ground. And then obviously the last piece that's on the slide on the left is the reduce of CO2. Obviously that's a big thing with a lot of airports, airlines trying to go to, highly sustainability and get away from fuel usage. So that's another thing that's so key about us tracking when APU and GPU are connected, right? Because the worst thing that can happen is a plane comes in, they delay it 10 minutes, it's burning fuel the whole time, right? Letting a lot of emissions out. So again, being able to kind of hold these guys accountable and say, hey, this is exactly when it's happening. It's 2 minutes after the fact. So we can, again, date and timestamp all these key things, but also give you the data to really back it up. And I think that's the key thing, because again, all these companies are going to talk about how, their technology does great things, and it does. But at the end of the day, it's really about the data and how easily you can kind of review it, splice it, and make actionable items out of it. Again, because, a lot of these different solution providers have great information, but if it's hard to kind of disseminate and then take action on it and figure out where the key areas we're having issues, I think that's another key thing. Just to give you an idea of kind of the way we kind of look at it, as you can see on the left-hand side, it kind of goes through, our typical setup is usually 2 cameras, but we can go up to 5. So with 80% of things you really want to track, whether it's, fall detection, safety cones, anything like that, we can go for the first 2 cameras. But again, we've had other people ask for specific things, whether they want to track below the wing or above the wing, right? Where when the cargo door opens, when the first bag goes off, can we track it and let them know how long it's going to take from that first bag getting to the carousel, right? Because, as we've probably learned, a lot of these operation guys at airports now are also having these titles that are customer engagement or customer experience, right? So if they can make sure that bag gets off that plane quicker and they can, quickly get it to the conveyor belt and back to their customer, it's going to be a better experience. One other thing I'd like to point out too is, I think we're one of the few people that we've actually started putting our cameras in the jet bridge to gauge, first passenger off, but also even more importantly, we've all been on a flight where you get on the flight, about 80% capacity gets on there, all the bins are closed, but you've got about 40 more people trying to get on that plane and put their bag in the overhead compartment. What we were able to do is now gauge, and track how many people get on that plane, how many bags get in that plane. So after a certain percent, we know a 737 holds 110 bags. We can send the gate manager a quick alert to say, hey, you need to valet check everybody else's bag. There's no more room on this flight for overhead bags. So just another kind of just different use case for that. But that's pretty much for the most part on the slides. Again, we've kind of talked about the safety alerts that we can kind of provide to the airports, airlines, ground handlers, whoever is, leading most of the things on the apron. So again, it's not being reactive, it's more proactive. And then as far as some of the safety related stuff that we track, obviously we talked about FOD walks, safety fest compliance. We were able to track speed of GSE equipment too. So that way, I think a lot of the ways that people look at it as well is, there's always going to be incidents where, a belt loader or a jet bridge hits a plane, right? And now the airport and the airline are kind of pointing the finger at each other, like who's going to repair this plane, right? So being able to have this footage we can provide, these 30-second clips, we can go back and clearly identify who was at fault, when it happened, exactly what time it happened, all these key things. So it kind of gives you multiple eyes around everything that's going on in the apron without having, to hire extra employees. But again, I know I've been long-winded and I've talked a lot. Does anybody have any key questions or anything that they want me to kind of clarify any deeper?
Well, I did want to make an observation, Justin. If we're accomplishing a reduction in CO2 emissions at the gate by implementing this technology and tracking it, Sergio's point is incredibly valid. To then turn around and increase CO2 output by not having delays and having planes fly around because they take off on time, but then they can't land because there's no availability on the other side of that flight. That's a good point, Sergio. I just want to point that out. So, it's kind of a segmented solution, but there needs to be an overall approach, especially when we're talking about CO2 emissions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Justin.
Well, I think another example of that is, another thing that I think that camera technologies really play into is there's been a lot of scenarios where, say, the pilot takes his foot off the brake, right? So now the signal to the air traffic controller is that plane has left that gate, right? So now another plane's coming in, they get there, that plane hasn't left. The guy just took his foot off the brakes, but he didn't leave for another 10 minutes. Now it causes an issue, right? With actually having the vision, we can see that a plane is still there and alert the plane coming in, hey, there is somebody at that gate. We're going to have to reallocate you, or you're going to have to, hold fast for 5 minutes and we'll get these guys out. So, it's a lot of things that, again, I think
software here.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just one input, which I think is very important. When we talk about those systems, and Justin has explained this quite well, we're not talking about a technology that will just be there to allow us to turn around more quickly. Okay, that will give us predictability. The system will allow us to know if everything is going okay, if we are going to be able to push back when we plan, or if we are going to have a delay. That does not mean that because we use the system, we are going to push back the aircraft and it's over. I don't care about fuel waste or environmental damage. I'm just saying that with the system, I know exactly what I can do. That's one thing. The technology will be there to know, to provide you with complete situation awareness. You know everything which is happening and what you can or cannot do.
Well, and Sergio, a lot of times we talk about this technology in terms of improving efficiency, but that's not the only thing it does.
Yeah,
You know,
that
you
gives
look
you
at safety.
predictability.
Yeah,
That
you
gives
know,
you
there's a lot of
predictability.
other right. There's a lot of other considerations.
If the way that air transport is operating at that environment is that an aircraft should not push back when the overall capacity does not allow, it is not because you have the system that you have to push back. Because no, I mean, that allows you to tell you or to tell people, I will be able to push back at this time. If I will or I will not do, that's part of another overall decision. But what that technology is allowing you is full predictability of what you can or what you cannot do, or if you have unexpected delays and things like that.
But herein lies the
Right.
conflict between, you know, efficiency for quick turns. That's what airlines want. They all want the bragging rights. And this is a great opportunity to segue into Mauro, you know, you contributing to the discussion here. I know that you worked with Azul Airlines, and I know that Azul's one of their objectives in Brazil was to, you know, have the quick turns and you know, be able to have those bragging rights. Every airline wants it. You know, so you know, what were you able to accomplish with Azul in your initial deployment of your technology and what you guys did on that project? But then, you know, we can continue to talk about how do you balance the best interest of the industry, the environment, the passenger experience, the on time,
Yeah,
you know,
it,
percentage,
it,
all of that.
yeah. It is important that those decisions cannot be made by one airline, by one airport. Those are decisions to be done by everyone,
Collaboratively.
and that includes passengers and civil aviation authorities and consumer rights protection agencies, because we have created a culture that, well, the best airline is the airline that closed door on time. And that's a culture that we are now
Yeah.
slaves to.
Everyone looks at on-time performance. You're right.
So it's nice that you mentioned an airline, because every airline that you go, you have 50% of the airline people working to fulfill schedule, to close door on time, and the other 50% working to save fuel. And they're basically pushing opposite direction, because one is saying push back on time because I need it, and the other one is saying when you push back on time, you get crowded. You are number 20 for takeoff, and you're going to have a holding pattern when you arrive at your destination. There is not right or wrong here. I just ask people to talk to each other, airlines, air navigation service providers, airport, community, and say, what type of operation do we need? So basically, a very basic. I was talking to Azul's CEO right after a panel where they were discussing environmental impact of aviation, and I said, okay, you have a flight that leaves at 5 o'clock from Rio to São Paulo, and you have a decision to make. Either you close door on time, and you're going to be number 15 for takeoff, and you're going to have a holding pattern before arriving, or you don't push back. You get people off, and you only turn on engines when you can do uninterrupted. Okay, this is not right or wrong, it's your choice. And when I say your choice, it's not only you as an airline, but everyone. What type of operation do we want? Do we want busy airports with busy airspace, with aircraft going nowhere other than holding patterns, or waiting for a pushback, or waiting for takeoff? Or do we want an operation where passengers know the flights will be late because it's a holiday, because there is a lot of demand, because the airport was closed, so the 2 o'clock flight will take off at 4 o'clock, but then you can get some rest, you can go for lunch. That's for everyone together to make that decision. How do we want to operate?
Sergio, do you think through passenger education and creating realistic expectations, like through communication, that largely can be addressed?
I'll give you an example. I was coming back from an event in Guadalajara, and I was flying through Houston, and that was a flight Houston-São Paulo and the flight Houston-Rio. I was in the flight to Rio, and the airline was calling passengers on the Houston-São Paulo flight to say, we need to get rid of 17 passengers because we are overbooked. And nobody was screaming. They know that happens because you don't lose your ticket because you check in and you don't show up. So you don't lose your ticket. So on the other hand, the airlines are allowed to overbook. So culture is the fact that whenever you try to implement something that will deliberately delay flights and you let passenger blame the airline because the flight is late, something is wrong. Because you were the one telling the aircraft or telling the pilot not to go now. And it doesn't make sense that you punish the airline because your flight is late. So any type of CDM initiative has to be a collective decision that involves everyone, including passengers, because they need to know it.
That's a good
Otherwise,
point.
they will finger point the airline to say, okay, Go's flight is pushing back and LATAM's flight is not pushing back. It's your fault.
Yeah. So Mauro, if we can allow you to have the floor for a second, sir, I would like to hear from you regarding the experience with Azul Airlines and your objectives in obviously every airline, as Sergio and we've discussed here today. You know, the objective is to certainly be ready, to have that to know what can be expected in terms of readiness. You want to turn as quickly as possible, assuming that everything else is going as planned and there's availability in the other airport. Yet they have capacity, then that's great. You know, on-time performance matters. What were you able to accomplish with Azul, Mauro, and your thoughts on today so far?
Yeah, our story is a little bit particular because we are a new entrant in this one-time performance market. We have a lot of experience using artificial intelligence for security and then safety applications. And we were invited by Azul to develop something for this complex thing that is all the operations and everything that happens when the airplane comes to park. We got their confidence, and we are very glad because we could develop the solution driven to their needs, which are not exactly the same that an airport operator has. So we use it. Our tools, our system is a little bit similar to Justin's, but of course, Synaptics is in business for much longer than us. They have a more complete solution in terms of detections they can do, but we could drive something specifically to the airline, and that was good. Yeah, I can't hear you, Jerry.
My apologies. I had my mute on. I was going to ask you specifically, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, and it's okay to say you don't remember all that, but specifically with Azul, what events were they seeking to cover? And I'm aware that in that particular case study, they were able to, it impacted to a significant degree their on-time performance. So like, what were you able, the events to capture to do that? And then did that also include other things like safety and security, or was it just focused on the on-time performance efficiency, considerations?
Yeah, today for Azul, we only do one-time performance detections and measures, and it's basically a time and movement application. Sorry, of course, there are some new demands that come from the airport operator, from the regulators. This is something that is full of regulations, and sometimes one agency comes with something new, another agency comes with another matter, and we try to put everything together. But today, as we develop that tool Azul, we today monitor I think it's 18, because it changes every day. It increases every day, 18 different topics, from fuel, to the door of the baggage area. We read the letters. I don't know how to call that, but the identification of the airplane.
Tail number.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. And but as I said, at that moment, they were concerned about improving their efficiency at the gate of their main hub airport. And it was very successful. We have numbers that they share with us. I didn't ask permission to share this publicly, but I can tell you that they improved a lot the efficiency, and they doubled, before 1 year of operation, they doubled the size of the system at VCP Airport. It's fully integrated. They worked together with us. It was basically a joint development.
Mhm.
We have a very good integration, very consistent integration with other systems they have in their operation control center. So they can make the better use of everything that is alerted by the one-time performance platform to make anything they need to do, like sending maintenance people, moving crews from one place to another. So it contributes with the whole airline operation. What is the challenge? As Sergio said, when we delivered that and put that to work, we said to ourselves, hey, we have a gold mine on our hands. It's just start showing that to other airlines, and they are going to make a roll at my door to buy the same thing. So first, through reality, we learned it doesn't work that way. We came back to us, we said, hey, why don't you hire us to put that in other big hubs that you have? We don't, and the answer was, well, we're done here. We now need the cooperation of the airport operators, because it's a lot of money to invest to benefit my operations, but there are other airlines sharing the same space. And who's going to be benefited from with the results that can be learned, can be measured, should be the whole environment, the whole chain of people and companies involved in that. And then we started trying to talk to airports or to airport operators. Second issue we faced, we didn't have a business model ready to do that. And we still don't, because today we have our platform running in 4 airports in Brazil, but fully operating is VCP. We have another 3 airports. One we have try and buy contract signed, but in a couple gates only. The other one wants a proof of concept for free, and we don't have a business model so far. But my point, I don't want to talk much about my application, but I would like to join Sergio's ideas that the main challenge we have is to work together to educate all the characters involved in this complex operation. Just to give you an idea, there are other new demands that come from one of the agencies, and it requires specific security detections in what they call envelope here, which is the area close to the gate. We have been discussing with Aristi, Leandro's here. We have been designing the best way to partner with them so that they can focus on what they do best, and we can focus on what we do best, even though we have similar applications in certain situations. What I wanted to try is to join, because we are not a big number of providers so far. We have the same challenges, the same obstacles, and this challenge of educating the people, the companies involved in the airport, in the apron management, in the airport operations, and so forth, is common. And I think we should join forces, because it's a big challenge to speed up the education of these people, to better understand the benefits, not only for apron management, for one-time performance stuff, but also for the whole chain that involves the air traffic of passengers and cargo.
Mauro, thank you. I will say, just personally, I met with a number of airport ops directors and CEOs this last year throughout Latin America. And, you know, my associate, Paola Vaquero, who's I'm sure on this call listening, was with me on a number of those meetings. And the issue of apron management and the technologies that are now available in the marketplace inevitably came up, I believe, in every conversation that we had throughout the year when we were meeting with airport executives. And there's a big void in terms of knowledge about exactly what it can accomplish. And in Latin America, specifically in Latin America, there's I think even a great deal of misunderstanding. I know that, but the interest is incredible. It was at the top of our discussion points.
Why they don't sign?
Yeah. Well, but these are coming, this Mauro's coming from airport executives. I didn't meet with really any airline. These are not from the airline side. These were airport executives that increasingly that have an interest in this. But Leo, I want to invite you to enter into the discussion too.
But
you know,
Gary,
Mauro,
please allow me to just one last phrase to make it short.
Sure.
Technology today is not the problem. There are not much companies developing solutions for that. There are just a few, but they all are good, experienced. They have solid platforms. So the technology is not the barrier. Okay. The business model, the education is something that we need to beat at this moment.
Yeah, Mauro, I could not agree with you more. I could not agree with you more. We need to understand. I'll give you a few examples of the culture aspect that we have been talking about. I remember back in 2015, when we sold an Aeroban platform to Rio de Janeiro Airport, where they implemented the first apron management center in Latin America. In the beginning, the airport CEO was very concerned because he didn't want the airlines to see the position of the aircraft. Is that we are deploying the system for us to see, and they said, no. I mean, you operate an airport, which is operated by a number of airlines, ground handlers, and everyone else. So surface surveillance is part of situation awareness. So the more situation awareness you have at the airport, the better for everyone.
Yeah, totally.
It's not something that you need to hide from the airlines. And also, I know that Synaptic, or I think it was with Safer, they were having some issues at an airport where the airport was concerned that the system was being implemented by an airline, but that airline could also see aircraft from other airlines. And say, and what's the problem about that? The passengers, when they go to the airport, they see all the airplanes. You know, I like to look at surveillance technologies at the airport as being the operational Wi-Fi. I mean, it's an absurd that any passenger arriving to the airport can get Wi-Fi to connect to even a porno site if he wants. But the operational guys running the airport, making the airport run, they cannot access surveillance information. The aircraft are transmitting information, but nobody's capturing that information and providing that to those who are operating the airport. It is as simple as that. And that is one thing that I'm doing right now. I'm working with ANCHAM, the North American Commercial Chamber, because there is a difference in the attitude of the FAA and Eurocontrol. While Eurocontrol and European consultants are selling ACDM all over the world as if it was a software, the FAA could not care less about what the rest of the world is doing. And by the way, where is the rest of the world for Americans? So they do what they do. The basis of what they do for managing airports is dedicated Apron management and surface surveillance for everyone. But they don't promote that to say, hey, make use of that in Latin America. No, do whatever you want. And because of that, we have been contaminated by a European culture that is based on the existence of the ATFCM of Eurocontrol with an air traffic flow and capacity management for the whole Europe. While in Latin America, we don't even have an ATFM regional service. We only have that in Brazil with no ground delay, so everybody takes off. So there is no comparison. We cannot try to implement anything because we love innovative solutions. I said, no, we just need to start using the traditional solutions because then we will understand why the innovative solutions as turnaround monitoring and management is important, because now we have gone back to the basics and say, if I'm responsible for operating this airport, it is important that someone is managing that. And by the way, the reason why I insist it is not Apron control, it is management, is because in US they use control for a union fight because the operators of the Apron they want to have the same salary of the controllers. So that's the reason why they call Apron control, but the service is not control either. They don't clear anything. It's management. And I insist that we should say management because then people understand, no, this is not to take the burden of controlling the Apron because it's a no controlled area. It's for taking advantage of the possibility that I have to manage the Apron more efficiently. I'm not talking about taking responsibility of controlling. It's taking the opportunity of managing it efficiently.
Yeah, right.
So in
Thank you,
entertaining,
Jerry. Sorry for extending a little bit my time.
sure. No, that's okay. I did want to entertain a couple questions that we got from that we have from listeners. And then I'm going to first ask Leo a question. You know, Leo, we've discussed AI and technology a lot and what Aricity does, and I'm familiar with a lot of what Aricity does in terms of efficiency in airports, security, you know, taking video and through the analytics, programming rules to accomplish either messaging to inform in real time or just from a historical standpoint. But maybe, you know, Leo, if we can hear from you about the potential of, you know, what you guys do and how it can affect turn management, and if there's any other overall, you know, discussion point that you want to elaborate on within the scope of this this focus.
Okay, guys, can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so first of all, it's a pleasure to be here with all of you guys. I cannot consider that we are competitor. I think we are colleagues for this journey. And it just the beginning of the journey. I agree, and I could pick up some words that we need to educate the market. This is the point. So some regulatory companies should be listen us what we can provide. The airlines, the companies that manage the airports, everybody needs to be in the same page. But before I speak something, Jerry, about your question. I would like to share one small video here and emphasize and question for us here, what is our mission? What is our mission in this topic? I would like to share the video, and after that we can discuss, okay?
Leo, if you maybe we can pivot and just kind of go over what perhaps the video was, maybe make your point in a different way. We'd love to have the benefit of it, but in the interest of kind of moving on.
Okay, sorry. Oh, I just would like to put a video with the whole picture of Apron management. I don't want to say here that we do something that Synapses probably do and our Resafer can do, but I really would like to put in overall picture here that and ask for everybody, what is our mission? Our mission probably is make the people happy to leave their house and go to the destinations without any situations or something that could happen in this way. So in my vision, I would like to stop some situations like people that cannot see their son in best moment in his life because of some flight delay. I'm not talking only the apron part. I'm talking about the human life that sometimes it makes them a terrible moment that maybe the apron management cause in their lives. So that's why I would like to emphasize that our technology should be a technology that makes video in data, and we need to transform this data in a better operations situation, right? That's my vision. Okay, so I know that everybody can say that we can create dashboards, we can integrate with another softwares, we can input some response, we can like make better decisions based upon the aircraft detections if the aircraft is ready to go to the gate and everything. But my point is how to make end-to-end solutions and make the this journey of the users in a better way. In this topic, Aricity could produce a platform that we are really ready to do something that can be totally easy to achieve this point. And I will try to show again another video here that can explain. Are you seeing my screen right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you seeing one video?
The videos,
Yes. Are you seeing personalized AI?
we can see that, but it's not really playing the video.
Okay, but I will stop and explain, okay, what it is. So we talked here about education, right? Is that okay? Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so nowadays I can ask to everybody. We have some airports that is controlled by government. We have airports that is mixed, private, and we have a lot of, for example, system integrators in the maintenance. It's changed a lot. So how to organize Apron in a one single way in a standard. Probably in the future we should have a kind of certification for that. I don't know. it linked with education, right? So Aricity produced a platform that I can call personalized AI, that we can produce everything what we want in a moment, in a minute, to help the operations. For example, here I have an example that I would detect, for example, an electric scooter or a car inside the airport or whatever. I would like to detect an airplane. I would like to detect a bag. I would like to detect whatever we want. The technology nowadays permits that we, as solution provider, create everything in the gate, in the operations, in the whatever area we want. So for example, here, I would like to create a rule here that I would like to detect people stand up in the scooter, and in a minute we can create this rule, right? And I could test if the people stand up or not in the scooter. For example, here I can show you that okay, these people is not stand up in the scooter, and then we can easily create an environment for the scooter part. For example, it could be a car truck in the gate. It could be a bag, a left bag. It could be whatever we want. What I would like to show here with this solution is that it's kind of Windows platform that can create more synaptics, that can create more receivers with a baseline platform that we are offering here. I can spread our moment that Mauro says, oh, we are only few companies in this field, that, oh, we tested, we created the software, but this what I'm showing here allow us to create more companies, to create more environment for us to really apply it in an airport. Okay, only few companies, only 5 companies maybe cannot create this big movement to create this environment. That's what I would like to show here, that easily we can create more synaptics, receivers, and iricities in the world with this platform that I would like to show.
So in trying to keep this discussion though specific to apron management, um, you know, so what you're saying, Leo, is because I'm quite aware of what Ericity is capable of in airports and in other public and critical infrastructure settings. I've seen the technology. I'm aware of what you guys do with smart cities and fighting crime and all of that. And it's incredible technology. The ability to create rules within the platform that identify events. So in the context of apron management, this is one of the things that Justin was elaborating on earlier. They've identified certain events that is covered in their technology, right? So they then measure. So whether it be, Justin mentioned, placing a camera and having the technology inside the gateway, the bridge, for example, or outside tracking, the fuel or the baggage claim, or what you're saying is the Vericity can identify any event, measure it, send alerts, things like that.
Exactly, Jerry. What I'm saying here that we have a platform to detect all the situations in the gate that we can see, and we can integrate it with another parts of the airport operations. Because if somebody is doing something in the checking line or another part, it can affect the apron management. what I'm saying here that even we have a perfect Apron management, we have another part to integrate to make it more in a big platform to really attend our mission that is talk the truth for the users in the airport. That's my point.
Okay, we did get a couple questions, but I see that they've been answered through text, so I'm not going to pose them. But Caesar, I did want to take a second and see if anyone had, if anybody has any questions, you can type them into us, or it might be possible for us to open up. We are sitting on an hour, everyone. So I'm going to I'm going to beg a couple questions that I kind of want to ask the group. And maybe Sergio, Sergio, you're such Sergio's kind of the father of, the kind of the macro perspective here on what goes on the air side and overall apron management. But Sergio, how are you seeing these technologies converge in a way? And, Leo mentioned a second ago that certain, certain rules or certain applications of the technology can be integrated with other aspects of AI, like what's going on within the airport to what's going on at the apron, within the apron. And that information can be shared. And it could be just a little bit more of a, cohesive direction in terms of management through the integration. But Sergio, where are you seeing all of this kind of integrate, converge? Where's the industry headed in your opinion? And, I like asking you because you have the ability to give such an incredible dose of reality in terms of what's not working. But recently I've been intrigued by, your comments about you're seeing a lot of positive movement. So as these technologies evolve, where do you see this going? And anyone can jump in on this, Justin, or Leo Morrow, how do you see this playing out in the next 3 to 5 years in terms of, expect not just in Latam, but in the global airport community as well?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you said you look at me as the father, not the grandfather. So that makes me...
I almost said grandfather, but I caught myself.
That makes me happy. Well, trying to give it a broader perspective. The scenario was, I remember a story I heard in one of the MBAs that I made that an engineer of a shoe company went to Africa, to a country in Africa, to explore the market. And he went back home and said, let's forget it. There is no point in having a factory there because people don't wear shoes. And then they sent a marketing guy there. And the guy came back and said, we need to start a factory there tomorrow because we have 100% of the potential market. So let's be realistic. Latin America is not a rising star for anyone. So I can guarantee you that a number of companies which provide solutions, for instance, in the US, in the area of surface management, turnaround monitoring, and all those fantastic technologies, they never approach Latin America because they come here and say, you know what? People who operate the Apron with the air traffic controller talking to them, they have blind operation, not even for ATC. They don't have ACE mix. They don't have any type of surveillance. There is no market. But I'm here. I'm Latin American. I'm Brazilian. And I look at everything that people do abroad and say, I would like to bring those stuff into Latin America because we are still airports. So what I see, fortunately, something that I have been predicting for 5 years is that a number of frustrated attempts to implement a CDM for neurocontrol in the region has happened. Mexico, Lima, Guarulhos, they tried. I said, it's not going to work. it didn't work. So now people are starting to understand, hey guys, if we want to improve the airport capacity, efficiency, and predictability, first of all, someone needs to raise the flag and say, I'll be in charge. Because the air traffic controllers will never do it. Air traffic, it's ICAO, it's in the Brazilian regulation, and I'm sure it's in every country's regulation. The responsibility of the air traffic controller is within the maneuvering area, runways and taxiways. There is no responsibility within the apron. So if we conclude as an airport, as an airline, that our airport is no longer low density, if there is congestion, someone needs to take the ownership and say, I will handle this airport more efficiently.
Is there an example? Is there an example in the world, Sergio, where someone is taking ownership? A good example of that happening.
I'll give you
that
an
you're
example.
aware of.
Rio de Janeiro, when they had in 2015, because they knew they would have the Olympic Games, they implemented Apron management. They call it control. It's wrong. It's not Apron control. They call it control
Management, right?
Because American influence. It's an Apron management with surveillance, and they efficiently manage the Rio Olympic Games. Same thing is happening right now in Lima. They just are finishing the implementation. So there is no place in the world where an airport has implemented Apron management, surveillance, and then they said, no, it's not good. It never happened anywhere. So the first thing is that if we need to implement, if we need to have more efficient and more robust and predictable operation, someone needs to take ownership of that operation and implement surveillance technologies all the way from MLAT, ADSB, turnaround monitoring, because it's our area of responsibility. So it's funny when you go to the airlines and the airport operation centers and you see the repetition of the approach control radar there. And they say, wow, that's great. You can see all the aircraft while they are outside of your area of responsibility. When it gets into your domain, you don't see them anymore. So this is wrong. I mean, and I think that the good thing is that as people are getting frustrated, as they did in Brazil with the ACDM attempt in Guarulhos, that it was a chaos, and it was obvious it's going to be a chaos wherever you try that. So people are starting to understand that it's up to the airport and airlines at their main hubs to say, I want to manage the apron efficiently, and I want technology for helping me doing that.
So a couple of questions have come up. Thank you for that, Sergio. And I want to pose a question to Justin. Well, actually, Mauro and anyone can, Leo, anyone can comment on this, but I want to first pose it to Justin. When you're presenting this technology solution, Justin, and I know like this is a common question to me and talking to airport executives during this last year, these questions came up. He says, Jerry, how does this work? What companies know what they're doing with this? There's all these options in terms of turn management and overall apron management. What exactly does it all cover? And, my question is, when you're addressing an airport, what concerns would an airport have that possibly wouldn't be a concern or would differ from that of an airline? Like, Mauro was specifically working in his discussion and in his original deployment of their technology, they were working with Azul Airlines. So is there a difference between kind of the emphasis of what's the interest of the airport operator versus the airlines? And then that's going to bring me to another question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously, airports and airlines kind of look at it differently, right? Predicted off block time is something that's very big for the airlines, right? That makes them more revenue. Some airports don't really have a big thing. I think airports look at it more as operational efficiency and being able to kind of have accountability, right? So like, just a good example, I spoke with a medium-sized hub not too long ago, and the big thing they said was, we've been kind of going on the honor system, right? We assume that our ground handlers are at the gate when they're supposed to be. We assume the airlines are doing all the right things, but we have nothing to, hold them accountable. Right now, we put our solution in there. Within 6 weeks, they found, I think, 43 violations. and ended up having to let go of one person that he repeatedly sped with GSE equipment. But so again, it's different depending on which market you really sell into, right? So North America is different than South America, right? So like a good example is like Atlanta. Atlanta loves our solution, but at the end of the day, 80% of their gates are owned by Delta. So they're saying, look, we want access to it, but we think Delta should be the one to pay for it, right? So I think that's the big thing that I was going to touch on after Sergio spoke earlier, is that I think the market's still defining itself. And now you're seeing a lot more major airports saying, you know what, instead of me looking down in 6 months and saying, 10 gates with WeSafe or 10 with us, 10 with possibly Asaya, I want to buy all the cameras. I'm going to put it in my cloud and I'm going to charge each turn to that specific airline. So if I have common use gates, I can say, hey, look, it's $10 per turn and I'll give you access to this information, right? But I think that's the big thing that scares airports is, when we go out and do some of these presentations, it's like, wow, that's a little scary that you can just pull up somebody else's gates. And what if there's the jet bridge hits that plane right when you're showing a demo? And it's like, well, we've got our clients to sign off on this, but also, as somebody mentioned earlier, there's 10,000 people in the airport with cell phones. So if that jet bridge hits that plane, we're not the only one that's catching footage of it, right? And we're not going to be the one that posts it on the internet. It's going to be one of the people that's sitting in that airport, right? So again, I think the end of the day is, I think airports and airlines need to kind of figure out how they can monetize this, how they can make their money back, and then the market will kind of dictate itself that way, right? Because eventually airports and airlines are going to have to sit down and have a conversation and say, look, we both want access to this, but as you can tell, and I'm sure everybody can attest to this on this call, they just keep pushing it back and forth. You get in touch with the airline, well, you have to go to the airport. Airport will say, well, the airline owns a certain amount of my gates, you need to sell it to them, right? So everybody kind of keeps pushing back and forth, where, as these guys all mentioned, it should be a collaboration where it's like, look, you guys need this to be more efficient. You're going to improve safety, right? Take events. I don't know what the average cost in South America is, but in North America, I think they spend between $400,000 and $600,000 a year on, workers' comp or injuries involved on the apron, certain things like that. Whereas if you have these safeguards, you have this technology, you have these key events that you can go back and train on, then you're going to mitigate that risk, right? You're going to save a lot of money that eventually will pay for itself. I mean, just one example was a jet bridge hit a plane in South Florida at one of the major airports. Airline and airport argued about whose fault it was. They pulled up the video. It saved the airline $600,000 to repair that plane, right? That pays for my company's system and probably WaySafers and Aericity's, for 3 years, right? So it's all one of those things where you have to kind of find a value wedge and say, look, at the end of the day, do you want to control this process and have control of what goes on in your airport, or do you want to look up one day and have a bunch of different airlines that have access to and footage of your different gates, and you're just kind of hoping that you can tag along and get some of the data from it? So again, I think the market is, at least 3 or 4 years ago, nobody could really quantify what AI and camera technology is doing. There is a market for it now, but now it's kind of the push and pull of who's going to pay for it, who's going to have responsibility. And even on the last point that Sergio talked about, that's still a major issue everywhere, is that, hey, these technologies great, but do we have to hire one guy to look at these alerts and look at these cameras, right? Most of these guys that look at these systems are logging into 7 different systems, one for gate management, one for, surface management, certain things. So again, like you said, finding out which part of the airport or airline is going to control and have access to this footage, right? Who's going to get their proactive alerts? Is that somebody in headquarters? Is that somebody on site?
Well, Justin,
right? So
and
it's difficult.
And that brings up a point. Chris Williams begged the question earlier, who gets access to the platform? Whose platform is it? Who's getting the notifications? And I'm aware, in having many discussions with Isaiah, you guys, and other providers of this technology, that's on a case-by-case basis. And in 100%. The case of Azul Airlines with you, Mauro, I don't know that the airport was receiving any of the real-time notifications. They were all going to Azul, from what I understood, but you can certainly, if that's
they're
correct.
Actually not interested.
Yeah, they're not interested, but that's amazing to me, because I think.
Question for you, Jerry. Question real quick. Mario, I'm assuming that Azul still had to get approval to put the cameras in at the airport. So they had to get some kind of approval or, agreement with the airport. So again, the airport knows that it's there, but eventually, like you said, they're going to be very curious about what that data is and what they can use it to kind of improve. Eventually they will, I hope.
Yeah, the only thing they just did not put obstacles. That's it. They collaborated with access to the areas and stuff like that, but they never followed that up properly. And just to
I will say
to
something.
take that opportunity, just 1 second, Sergio, please. The airport operators here, we've been talking with airport operators in Brazil. We had 1 or 2 contacts with airports in South America, but the feeling I have is that they are so busy, so concerned about adjusting infrastructure, because this is what they see as a priority, that they did not see so far the benefits of having the whole operation as part of that. When you mention adjusting that an operator can monetize with that, and they are not looking at how can they do that? How can they convince the airlines to pay for that kind of service? But I give you one information that I got from Azul guys. In the United States, there's one liability case per 1.3 million passengers. Here in Brazil, there's one liability per 227 passengers. And everything goes straight to the airline. So the operators have nothing to do with that, you know? So
Right.
it hurts. So why don't they? That's what we have been trying to make them see. Why don't they take, for example, this liability opportunity and start discussing with the airlines about the benefits of, for example, reducing the number of lawsuits they have?
Well, and Mara, we are aware, and I'm not going to specifically name any cases because it involves specific cases of a company that's not a solution provider that's not participating on this webinar. But I will say that there are cases where, and Justin, probably this is the case with you, I don't know, but with Synaptics, but where the platform is set up and the real-time notifications are going both to the operator and to the relevant airline that's operating at that terminal and at that gate in real time. And many of those communications are happening simultaneously, and it's part of the agreement, right? Not only will both have access to the recorded events from a historical data stamp, they'll be able to go back and look and see what happened, and there'll be a catalog of of issues that may have need to be addressed, like you mentioned, Justin. They can go back and look at a number of things, but there are certain programmable events that are sent out on a real-time basis in the form of a communication to both the operator and the airline. I don't know, I mean, in the context of this discussion, why all airports wouldn't immediately want that at every gate, at every terminal. Obviously, it always boils down, to this
Sure.
and educating them on the benefits. But there's a real opportunity here, a need in the marketplace to educate all of the relevant stakeholders as to why this technology needs to be deployed at every gate, in every terminal, at every airport. There's so many cases where it proves to be incredibly useful, beneficial from a liability standpoint. Mauro, you're pointing out the incident in Florida, Justin, you pointed out that that can protect either party, all parties. In particular, though, the airport. And here's a question I do want to beg, but we will have to end this call soon. Is there a case, Justin, that you've worked with, since you do have the most experience out of everyone on the call, specifically with turn management solutions with this, where an airport is monetizing it? Have you personally worked with a case where an airport is taking this technology, they're contracting with Synaptics, for example, in this particular example, and then monetizing it by charging the airlines a fee, either per per gate or per
So
stop?
tricky question to answer. So we're in the contract phase with 3 companies, so I can't say by name who they are.
Okay.
But yes, so there's 3 large hub airports in North America that, again, that we talked about earlier, that kind of taken the tack where instead of having the airlines pick and choose what they want for their gates, they're buying it wholesale for the whole airport, every gate, 3 cameras each gate. And then they're going to say, look, hey, if you got if United, you have these 10 gates, each flight that comes in is $10 per turn. If you guys want to split it, then the airline can pay 6 and the ground handler can pay 4, right? But again, it's a way to kind of get that buy-in, because again, I don't know, South America, I think it's a little bit different, but in North America, when we've done any POCs or anything, whether it's an airline, a ground handler, we always give access to the airport. That's kind of one of the things that they make sure that they sign off on it. So again, the airports are kind of getting access to this technology for free, right? They're getting all the data, all the key thing. They have, ability to see the footage. So they're kind of riding off the coattails of some of the airlines. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing about it, is I think that's the thing about
But you,
where the
Justin,
market's
you've
going.
worked in you've worked in Latam also. You're not seeing the model thus far play out in Latam.
To be honest, I hasn't been a big key part in the Latam discussions. We have a guy on our team, Federico, that's kind of taking control of those.
Okay.
Again,
I'm
he's
just
fluent in
curious.
Spanish. I am not. So I would have to lean on him to answer that question. I don't want to give you something I don't 100% know.
Sure, that's okay.
But again, to go back to the original question is, again, I think that's going to be the big thing, is that, eventually, especially the large hub airports and probably the mediums, they're going to go buy the solution, right? Because they want to control it. They don't want to have 5 different providers that have, video footage and analytics on all their gates. Just because, I mean, you've seen the cybersecurity attack in Seattle, all that data got leaked. What if one of us, whether it's myself, Mauro, Leandro, what if somebody hacks into one of our systems and provides all the information, right? Because that's a key thing for our tool is, like one of the airports that's buying it is going to do it across thing. The big thing for them is that they can actually go into our dashboard and compare against each airline. Like say, hey, okay, American, Delta, United, let's look at all their data. And it's like, okay, American Airlines is taking usually an hour and a half per turn. Delta's taking 2 hours. United's taking an hour and 45 minutes. But then you can kind of dig into the data and figure out what is specifically causing these delays. And is it a specific gate or a specific date of the month? Because then you can kind of will it down. Maybe it's this crew. Maybe this crew doesn't work that well, right? So I think there's a lot of different applications. And I'm sure these guys can probably talk about some other areas that, customers are going, because now that customers kind of see the value, now they're wondering, how far can we take this, right? We've had one customer ask us to build a learning management system. They're going to use it to onboard their airlines and ground handlers if they want to work at the airport, their airport, right? So they kind of want to use it to say, look, you have to go through this certification, go through these videos, go through this multiple choice test. And then if you get certified, then we'll allow you to work at our airport, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of different avenues that, airports and airlines are taking with this. But, as most of these guys have talked about it, it's just a matter right now. There's a lot of people pointing that, hey, somebody else should be paying for this, right? So eventually the market's going to settle. And I think a lot of the larger airports are going to buy it themselves and not get in this battle of, hey, we got to charge it to American, and American has access to 10 of our gates. They also have access to 2 of our common use gates. There's no cameras at that, right? So there's just a lot of loopholes right now, and there's a lot of gaps in the technology, right? I think the other thing too, and I'll stop after this, is there's a lot of integrations, right? There's a lot of companies in North America alone that do just gate management tools, right? Whether it's, gate allocation or, having different rules like the A380 rule, right? You can't have a certain size plane parked beside another one, right? You have to then move it to a separate gate. There's specific technology that just does that, right? So I think it's one of those things that these airports now are looking at trying to find 5 or 6 different solutions that encompass everything on the, apron, tarmac, runway, everything, and do it in one. San Francisco just had a big tech day and said, look, we're not going to pick just an AI timestamping. We're not going to pick just the runway incursion system. We want all of it. We're tired of logging into 10 systems that don't communicate to each other. I think that's the way it's going to go. But again, there's only certain airports that have that kind of budget that can go spend multi-million dollars to kind of get a end-to-end solution. I mean, they're even trying to do like queue management to figure out where the congestion is in the terminal before they even get to the plane. So, that's the way I think it's going, is eventually there's going to be this gigantic, multiple company collaborations to put these end-to-end solutions that are, 5 pieces of software put together.
Let me add something right on what Justin has just said.
You got 30 seconds, Mr. Sergio, because we're got to close here in a couple.
It's a funny story. Since 2016, I have been fighting within Saab that we should offer surveillance systems for air traffic control based on multilateration and ADS-B only, without the need for the very expensive surface movement radars. I have written responses from 2016 and 2018 saying, no, this is not safe. The FAA will never approve that. Last year, the FAA launched an RFI called Surface Awareness Initiative, asking for lower cost ATC surveillance platforms because they have 450 airports within US with no surface surveillance for air traffic control. And guess what Saab did offer? Exactly what I was suggesting for the very reasons, because the FAA realized they have a Latin American within US. And that's what I say. We need people who understand air traffic control fighting for Latin America. You go to airlines and airport operators in Latin America, who understands air traffic control? Air traffic controllers are sergeants in Brazil. They have no decision power. So we need people to understand the capacity, the demand, and the physical issues involved in air traffic control, because all the beauty of air transport is based on what is capacity. And that's air traffic control comprehension, which lacks in most of the decision makers at the airports and airlines and everybody.
And on that note, I'm going to thank everyone for participating. Leo from Aricity. Leo, I know Aricity is doing great work in airports and smart cities, ports, and really all over Latin America, and particularly in Brazil. A lot of successful deployments there. Justin, your contributions today were great. We appreciate your insights, especially those final points. We appreciate it. Good luck to Synaptics. Mauro, appreciate your contribution today, and wish you more success in Brazil. I know you guys, new to the marketplace there, but have some great deployments going on, from your first one to your 3 new ones, and you're expanding. I wish you the best. I would invite everyone listening to the call to consider in Brasilia. We will have TMAC, the Modern Airport Conference, on March 18 and 19, and we will be exploring these issues and many more extensively at the TMAC conference. It's going to be exciting, as it's our first TMAC conference in Brazil, and we will be having it from 2025 onward. We'll be having it every year in Brazil. So I know that Sergio, and want to thank the father of the discussion today. Sergio, we appreciate you, sir. Sergio is going to be leading a panel at the Brazil conference, and so he's going to bless us with his presence there. We're excited about that. So thank you everyone for participating. We will be posting this on our website, tmac-brazil.com or tmac-lac.com. It will be on both of our TMAC websites. Thank you, everyone.
Jerry, just a quick question for you.
Sure.
Are you guys going to put up our contact details? Because I encourage everybody on this call, reach out to myself, Mauro, Leandro, get a demo of our solution, because again, we've only touched the surface of some of the things we can do. I'm sure Mauro can do, Leandro can do a lot more. If you have questions, if you're hesitant, or if you're not really sure exactly what it can do, reach out to any of the 3 of us. We'd love to give you a demo and really go dig deep into our solution and how it could benefit you guys.
Yeah,
Gerald,
absolutely.
Gerald, one comment that to spread what we discussed today, I think we need to teach more partners and spread more our technologies, because I know to do as a early adopter customers, we need to do more, but to conquer the market, we need to have more partners. So this is good initiative to put all of us in the same place, but for my point of view, to spread more, we need to educate through partners our technology.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why at our conference, for example, when I had the meetings with the airport executives this last year, Paula and I met with a number of them, and these issues kept bubbling up in every conversation, right? It was the number one discussion of interest, point of discussion with every executive was this Apron. What is Apron management? What is turn management? And within the overall discussion. But so my point is this: we are going to be tackling this in our conferences, and we're probably going to even be scheduling another webinar on it as the year 2025 progresses.
Yeah.
So we're definitely committed to the dialogue. I think, you know, this is something we have to engage, certainly.
Yeah.